Everyone, Alec Tackmann here. We're looking at page 11 of Go and Practice Book 2. And this page is dealing with the inverted double stroke roll. So this is a tricky rudiment, but I think it's a very important one. It's kind of a bit more of an advanced approach to it, but I still think it's important to try it out early on in your development of learning to play doubles, because it forces you to work on the second stroke of that double. So what is an inverted double stroke roll? Basically, it's a normal double, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, that we've displaced by one spot. Everything's shifted over one. So what that means is we begin on a single now, and then from there it's all doubles. So like a quick example will be, you just go like right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right. Now that everything has been scooted over one spot, it's going to force you to focus on the second stroke of the double, because now it's on a strong beat. It's on all of your down beats. And when we play a normal double stroke roll, no matter how much I think you're focusing on it, on doing it right, we're still emphasizing the downbeats a little bit more. When we do the inverted double stroke, you got to put a little extra oomph on the second part of the stroke, and this is really good for your technique. This is going to help you a ton if you're a drum set player for playing on things that don't bounce, like a floor tom, like hi-hats. Hi-hats don't actually bounce a whole lot, especially when you play them on the edge. And then also just your snare drum playing in general. A practice pad is far more bouncy than an actual snare drum is. So like I said before in the previous video, if you're not practicing on an actual drum, which you should do most of the time, I know it's loud and can annoy people that you live with, but don't forget to actually practice on your drum. If you're going to sit and work on rudiments, sit down with your headphones on or earplugs or whatever and practice them on a snare drum. Don't go for the practice pad. Nothing is going to replace playing on an actual drum. Now if you have to, I would suggest playing on a dull surface, like one of these gel pads or something, instead of one of these super bouncy ones. So anyway, let's dive in. Number one on the inverted double stroke roll page. If you've never done one before, number one is harder to do than you think. Look at the sticking very carefully. We just start off with quarters and move to the eighth notes, and in the eighth notes we're going to see the inverted double. Now right away you're going to see the hard part of this, and that's, for most people, or at least I find with my students, getting out of the first measure, getting out of the second measure and getting into the measure 3. So that's the and 1. You have to still push to hit beat 1. That's the one we all want to emphasize so hard, but it's on the second note of the double. So this is where you're going to start to see, oh, okay, this is what I have to work on. And something as simple as number 1, you can just kind of park on that exercise for a while and try it at different speeds. Number 2 is the same thing, both the left hand. This is going to be much harder. Oh. Anyway, so there you go. Number 3, same deal but longer, and it's written as 8th notes and 16th notes. Again, with all these you can play in whatever speed you want. Number 4, same deal, left hand, watch me play it and try to screw it up again. This one's going to be way harder on the weak hand. So yeah, if you're right-handed like me, number 2, number 4, number 7, and 9 are going to be brutal. But if you're a drum set player, this is really helpful to do. So if we look at like number 4, for example, get rid of the right hand, let's take a look at what's going on in that measure there. Bum, bum. That's essentially a shuffle that we're playing. Now, if you're playing on the drums, a shuffle, you're having to do an inverted double stroke roll for the entire groove. To get that accent out there, the backbeat, you're having to snap out a louder stroke on the second note of the double. So learning this rudiment is going to be a huge help for you. Number 5 is kind of the same thing we saw on the previous page, where you're comparing your inverted double stroke to a single. You want them to be about the same if you can. Number 6 and 7 is where it gets crazy. So if you look at number 6, we've got accents here now. This is an exercise I first saw studying with Terry Lynn Carrington. Her thing was articulation, working on that all the time. And she had an exercise kind of like this. Hers was a little bit different. Hers, you had to do rim shots instead of the accents, which is another variant if you want to look on that and try to play it that way. But number 6, we put accents on all of our downbeats. So you get 1 and 2. Now this takes it to another level. Instead of trying to make it even, you have to make it louder. As I was talking about before in the shuffle thing, you gotta do that a ton playing there. So this is also kind of the theory of, if you can play it louder, playing at the same volume should be really easy. So if you go back to playing a normal double stroke after getting good at these, it's gonna be much cleaner. So number 7 is the same thing, left-handed. One side note here about evenness with the right and the left hand. If you're a snare drummer, yes, you want to try to make your hands as symmetrical and balanced as possible. But if you're like any drummer on earth, you always have like your dominant hand and your weak hand, and it drives you crazy trying to make the weak hand as strong as the other one. For me, I'm primarily a drum set player, and what I've kind of done over the years is I've just kind of let my left hand do its thing and my right hand do its thing, recognizing that on a traditional drum set setup, your hands have 2 different jobs. So like, my right hand is way faster, stronger, more articulate, all that kind of stuff. Playing these sorts of things. However, my left hand is way more consistent at playing a rim shot, because it sits and does that all day when I'm playing beats. If I flipped rolls, it'd be a mess. It would not sound as good. So I think depending on what kind of percussionist you are, what you play, don't arbitrarily think, okay, I gotta make them evenly as I can possibly get them. It doesn't have to be that way. It might not be like the job at hand. Okay, so if you play the drum set, just let your hands do what they need to do. You can strive for evenness, but don't like rack your brain over trying to make it perfect, because it doesn't need to be. I don't think the instrument was designed in the traditional grip era anyway. The hands had different jobs. So anyway, yeah. Number 6 and 7, those are really tough exercises. I strongly recommend doing those on dull surfaces, and those will really open up your strength for other rudiments, primarily a double stroke roll, but you'll see it in a lot of other ones, like flam and cue, for example, where you gotta snap out, the accent on the second stroke there. 8 and 9 are the same kind of things we've done before. You want to make the single sound really nice next to the double, and then 10 and 11 are just kind of other ideas to noodle around with. Also with the inverted double stroke roll, though, this is different from what's on the page here. You're going to get what I kind of call them like melodies. They're not, obviously, but I think if you play an inverted double and you put your hand on a different surface, I'll just use the edge of the pad for now. it's kind of got a cool little rhythm. Boom, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. And if you start moving it around, to me that's kind of like a little melody rhythm. If you play a normal double stroke roll, that's fine. But I personally think the inverted one is just a little hipper. It's just a little, it sounds cooler. So there's also just that reason for it as well. It's just, there's just cool rhythmic ideas that can come out of it. So anyway, there's the inverted double stroke roll, my ramblings on it. If you have any questions on it, just let me know. Check out the books if you haven't. Go and Practice. This is book 2. Also check out 1 and 3 if you haven't. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for watching the video. See you on the next one.